Yep, there we go. Good afternoon. Thanks everybody for showing up. I'll eat the microphone. I was born in 1948 in a small town in Montana. It was the northeast section. And I was the fifth member of a family of six. This little town, Glasgow, Montana, my father was a county agent. My mother worked for the county welfare, and it was wonderful. We were free. When we could assume some obligations on our own, we could do it. Our family let us. When we could run, we were allowed to run because it was a small town. And when I was 6 years old, I would walk downtown with 75 cents in my pocket and get a haircut. When I was 7, I took my brother, who was 5, with me. So it was, save the money today. So it was a very, very special town. And when I was in grade school, polio came to visit and everything changed. In that period of time, when it came to Glasgow, Montana, we didn't know what it was. And when we finally figured out what it was, we didn't know how to stop it. We didn't know what caused it to move from child to child. We had no idea how it went from one family, got this child, and nobody else. And it was just baffling. So the town changed. The pool closed. They went through and they started to put more chlorine in the water because they weren't sure that would do it. They thought it might be mosquitoes, and so they added more DDT. And they came out with those mosquito foggers more often. It was a couple of times a week when I was very young, and it became 5 times a week when polio hit. And then one of my best friends disappeared from school. And the next time I saw him was in an iron lung. And the next time I saw him after that, and I couldn't talk to him because we weren't allowed to go close. We didn't know. And the next time I saw him, he was on crutches. And that's the way he spent the rest of his life. And my mother was with welfare, and there were 2 large Indian reservations up where we grew up. And the Indians, Assiniboine and Sioux, and they were different Sioux than the Lakota. And these reservations had 8,000 people on it. And we didn't take care of them. And we would go out, take food to some of the families, and we'd walk in, and I watched my mother watch those kids to make sure they were okay. And if they weren't, we left, and she called county health. And then the news, and we got it by radio, then the news came, and they said that there may be a cure, and it may be this gentleman named Sabin, and that he was in extensive testing, and it looked like it would work, but it would take a while. And as luck would have it, a young researcher came up with another way of doing it. And so we came out with they came out with the polio vaccine. Jonas Salk, who wasn't even 30 years old when he found it, came out with the vaccine, and we all got in line, and we never forgot that it was a mortal battle. And now, some 60 years later, this close. We are this close to nailing it. And that's what today's about. My name's Jim McGibney. I'm the president of Rotary Club 31. Thank you all for being here. It's just a marvelous event to celebrate the rededication of this statue out here that means everything to all of us about what Rotary and what our fight with polio is all about. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And you're going to be able to meet some of the people that have driven our fight with this mortal enemy, and it is a mortal enemy still today. And even though we're close doesn't count, not in this game. I'd like to introduce, we have a number of dignitaries here today that are a big part of why we are here. David Turnquist, Associate Vice Chancellor, Facilities Management, University of Colorado. David, where did you sit down? In the back up here. Thank you for your help. Neil Kraus, Director of Administration Office of the Vice President for Health Affairs, Executive Vice Chancellor for Anschultz Medical. Where are you, Neil? You were here? Oh, there you are. There you are. Neil was a big help while we were going through locating where this statue is ending up. Jeff Parker, Vice Chancellor, Administration and Finance, University of Colorado at Denver. Thank you, Jeff. And Lily Marks. Is Lily Marks here? Okay, we'll wait for her to introduce. Julie LaRudis, Director of Grants Program, Betcher Foundation. She's the one that put together a $14,200 grant to refurbish and relocate that statue. Julie? All right, stand. Great. We were supposed to have the Honorable Mayor Hogan, but as we all saw in the newspaper this morning, he's looking at other things today, dealing with DIA, perhaps another time. But I'm going to take 1 second and say that we all owe an enormous debt to the government of Aurora for what they have done. Without the work of Paul and Ed Tower, without the work of their staff, without the work of Steve Hogan, we wouldn't be here. There wouldn't be a here. So we owe them a great debt. Sue Ryden is here. She's a club member and she's state representative, House District 56, and in charge of our PR, right? Lynn Hammond. Lynn Hammond is a trustee of the Rotary Foundation. They manage about $800 million worth of funds in that foundation and give away, and I say that very blithely, $200 million a year. It's very impressive. Greg Pod, Rotary International Director nominee, begins his, there you are, over there, I knew that. He begins his term this July. Next July, we're about to lose, we won't see you then, will we? You'll be on the road all the time. A couple more, and then Grant's going to say a word or two. For Rotary, we've got our current district governor, Mike Klingbeil. Mike. We have the district governor-elect, Dan Himmelspach. Daniel up here, who also grew up at the same time in a small town in Montana, and we'll share a similar story. Peter Ewing and his wife Mary Jean, right here, they are district governor-elect. Frank Sargent, Frank Sargent, where are you? Oh, Frank Sargent is a past district governor. And Ann Toll is here. She is a district chair for the Rotary Foundation. Ann? You helped them spend that $200 million, I hope. Here, Ev Sequeira is here, the president of Rotary Club of Aurora. Ev, yeah. And Glenna Hale is the president of Aurora Gateway. Glenna. Ah, there we are. This is an, pardon? Oh, Kevin McConnell, district governor-elect nominee, sorry. This is a very big day because we're about to hear from the gentleman that really is responsible for a lot of what Rotary does worldwide in the area of control of polio. But first, we have a very short video. It's called A Reason to Act.
If you were an athlete, you would never run only 99% of a race. An astronaut wouldn't fly only 99% of the way to the moon. And a firefighter would never put out just 99% of a fire. The world is to be commended. Through cooperative, strategic, and aggressive actions, we've been able to reduce the global threat of polio by 99%. Now, it's time to finish the job. At this moment in history, we have the know-how, the tools, the vaccines, the people, and the will to end the threat of polio. We know the reasons to act. We know the consequences if we don't. We must find the resources to finish what we've started. Every last child deserves a polio-free world.
I would like to introduce past district governor, past Rotary International director, past club president, and an extraordinary mentor, Grant Wilkins.
Thanks, President Jim. I guess my lavalier mic's working all right, huh? In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to try and take you through 33 years of history. Actually, in 1980, RI President James Bomar was from Shelbyville, Tennessee, was in the Philippine Islands in a remote village called Mikado. Saw kids crawling around, their hands and knees in the dirt, asked what was the matter with them, found out they had polio, no medical attention in the Philippines for polio patients, and especially in remote villages. So he decided they would do something about it, and they immunized the kids in the Philippines. One country after another, Rotary country, and we've got 200 in the world, heard about that and said, hey, we want our kids immunized too, because many of the countries of the world had not been immunized, some 120 at that point in time. So that's how Polio Plus got started. We started having meetings in 1985 back at headquarters. I was selected because even though I'd been a Rotary governor at that time, I was the only senior leader of Rotary that had ever experienced polio firsthand and had the family involved, which I'll talk about a little later on. So we set a goal, naive as we were, of $120 million. We thought that would buy 2 drops of oral vaccine for every child in the world in the countries that had not had the immunization efforts. Fortunately, we raised more than double that. We raised $244 million. But as I stand here today, when we're going to get this job done in 2018, we will have spent $15 billion to eradicate polio. Of course, it'll only be the second disease in the history of mankind that's been eliminated from our planet Earth, smallpox being the first one back in the 1960s. So it was interesting, when we first started, after we raised the money, Latin America was our first countries that we got involved with. And after that, we moved to India. But I remember distinctly how proud I was when I read that 3 million kids were immunized in this country, or 10 million in that country. And then, of course, when we got to India, one of the biggest and the dirtiest, unfortunately, least healthy countries in the world, we ended up doing 150 million children in one weekend, age 5 and under. And it was done, Rotary did the organizing. World Health and Center for Disease Control and UNICEF have been our partners in this from the start. But Rotary has the troops on the ground. We're the people that do the stops every few blocks in the city of Mumbai or wherever, of having a place where you could take your child 5 and under and put 2 drops of oral vaccine. Somebody does that. And something as simple as this is the most effective weapon of war that you've ever seen. Styrofoam, little box that holds hundreds of vials of the polio vaccine. You break open the vial, 2 drops per kid, and you just go down the line. This cost a few bucks. It saved the lives of millions of kids in the world. We've immunized over 2 billion kids today already, and we'll continue doing that through 2015, when we think that will eliminate the last case. But imagine the cost of this versus a rifle and a bomb that kills hundreds or thousands of kids. And these things, in the hands of Rotarians, have saved over 2 billion children have been immunized in our world today. So it's fantastic. And we had other weapons of war that we wore. Marlene and I went to a National Immunization Day in the Ivory Coast in 1998. And you wear these caps. This was from India. Polio Free India, Stop Polio Now. District Governor Mike has got a visor on, and we wore bibs like that. We had...
That's my Vanna routine right here for Grant, okay?
And we had shirts like this in the Ivory Coast, one side in French, one side in Spanish, to identify the workers. And we've learned a lot as we've gone along. It's been a scientific thing, and nowadays they can identify a wild virus when it shows up wherever it is in the world they can tell you within 24 hours what country that came from. Until a few years ago, most of them came from India. But India finally bit the bullet about 3 years ago and gave us $657 million, and we've had a polio-free India now for 2 years. So it's amazing what can be done when people get serious. I brought some fact figures along here because I can't remember all of these things. Make sure that I don't forget to tell you, but when we started, Polio Plus, the plus was the 5 other vaccine preventable diseases. Polio plus those. Whooping cough, smallpox, whatever, measles, chicken pox, polio. But we soon learned, Rotary learned, that we'd do well just to eliminate polio from the planet. And even though World Health and Center for Disease Control and UNICEF were working with us, it took 2 different types of vaccine. And at the start, our polio vaccine, we had, well, back when I had polio in 1951, I had bulbar polio, and my first wife had lumbar. Those were the 2 types. Now we know there's 3 types, types 1, 2, and 3. Type 2 has been eliminated from the planet for over a decade. We don't worry about that. Types 1 and 3, sometimes one vaccine, the oral drops, was effective and sometimes it wasn't. So just 2 years ago, they invented a bivalent vaccine that takes care of types 1 and 3 equally effective and at the same time. So we've made tremendous progress. And by the way, that film you saw said 99% done. We're 99.9% done as we speak today. We had 350,000 cases a year when we started this program, actually started immunizing kids in large quantities back in the 80s. Today, this year, the first 5 months, we're now in the 6th month, first 5 months, I think we've had 42 cases. That changes on a daily basis. Most of those cases are northern Nigeria, with a few in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And I'm sure you all read about the shootings that occur, the volunteers that get killed once in a while they're immunizing children. It's a sad thing. Rotary's tried to prevent that. John Klug even gave me a picture in the list of all the Islamic leaders in the world and see if we could get them together. Well, I found out that CDC has tried that several times, and even they can't control all their people, especially some of the Taliban, just like we couldn't control the young man that killed all those people here in Aurora in the theater. These types of people exist throughout the world and probably always will. But in spite of them, we're going to get the job done here. Let me tell you, 26 years later after the official start, some of the statistics are 122 nations have benefited, over 2 billion children have been saved from having polio, 13 million are walking around who otherwise would have had polio because a certain 0.5% of the people that get polio, and you've all had the polio virus, you just weren't paralyzed by it. Only 0.5% are paralyzed. And 5 to 10% of those people that are paralyzed end up dying from polio. So we've saved 13 million from being paralyzed. We've saved about 1.5 million from dying from polio. And that's been since we started the Polio Plus program. And just think about it. A great humanitarian organization, I think the best one in the world, Rotary International, with the help of people who joined in helping our 1,300,000 Rotarians, our troops on the ground that administer these programs, whatever country they're in. We have been able to make that kind of difference in the world. It's fantastic, and today, if we hadn't started this, we'd be having another 650,000 cases, new cases every year. So you can see what Rotary does. You should all give yourself a pat on the back. Let's see what else I can tell you that I might forget. We know that young children are the primary victims of polio, but I got it at age 25. That was my wife back in 1951 when we contracted polio. She came to visit me in the hospital. I'd been in there 2 weeks, had bulbar, the fatal type, that my throat was paralyzed, couldn't talk, couldn't swallow. They fed me in my veins, keep me alive. Fortunately, that year they started doing tracheotomies for people that had polio. Before that, I would have died because all my saliva and my paralyzed throat would have gone into my lungs, and I'd had pneumonia and died in a few days. Even though I had 105-degree fever, I got over that. The paralysis started going away. I got out of isolation. My wife came to visit me. The polio ward was at 8th and Colorado Boulevard, University of Colorado Hospital, which is now here, this beautiful new facility. And happened to mention to the doctor that she didn't feel good, and because we had a small child at home, he said, well, we better make sure that you don't have polio. They do that by tapping your spinal cord. They found the polio virus in her spinal fluid, said you can't go home. She had driven over, walked up, put her in the ward next to me, and 24 hours later, she was totally paralyzed from her neck down and remained that way for 13 years. Lived in an iron lung for 2.5 years until they invented a chest respirator, a plastic shell that goes around your chest. It was invented by a guy by the name of Monahan up in Boulder, Colorado. And that would do the same thing. It was connected to a little pump in a small Samsonite suitcase, and that would depress your chest like the iron lung did. And when it quit, then air would be sucked in involuntarily into your lungs. And then it would push it down, and the air would go out, and that's how an iron lung functions. The problem with an iron lung, and you saw the one out in front, the access was through portholes, which kind of breaks the pressure a little bit and limits what a nurse can do to a person in an iron lung. When she got the chest respirator, we were able to build a home with wide doorways and no steps. A wheelchair, a hospital bed could be pushed around in, and we're able to bring her home. And of course, her limbs were all exposed, so people could bathe her, change her clothes, what have you. We had 3 kids, 5 and under, at that time. The rest of the story is, that I don't usually mention, is our youngest one was in the same hospital we were at Colorado General. He was born premature, weighed 2 pounds, 5 ounces. So he was in there, the 2 of us were in there, and our middle child was in Children's Hospital with rheumatoid arthritis. So I only had 1 child left at home. But as my wife came home and lived for another 11 years in this chest respirator, and she was always there. She always had a smile on her face for her kids, even though she couldn't pat them, spank them, hug them, do anything else. They took care of her, but she was mentally present there, and the kids knew that they could always come home from school and their mom would be glad to talk to them, help them solve problems. So difficult situation, but she was an inspirational type of person, so much so that all the ministers in town, from Catholic priests to Jewish rabbis to Episcopal priests to our Methodist minister, would come over and visit her just to get inspiration. So we don't plan any of this stuff, we just suffer through it, and it's amazing how it all comes out in the long run. In 2011, just 2 years ago, we had 400 million children in 40 countries were immunized in that 1 year. And when we started this program way back in the 80s, 90% of the people in the world, only 10% of people in the world lived in polio-free countries. Today, it's some 99% basically. Well, out of the 200 countries that Rotary's in, there's only 3 that have these few 42 cases. When we started, it was 12 cents a drop, or for 2 drops, 1 vaccine, oral dose to a child was 12 cents. Today it's 60 cents. So costs have gone up, like everything else in the world. And as I say, only 3 countries really that are endemic. Abu Dhabi, you probably read about the meeting there a few weeks ago. World Health Organization, Center for Disease Control, UNICEF, and Rotary all got together with 60-some medical experts and leaders in the world, scientific research. Because all the years we've been doing this, we've never been able to set the final date. And we know we have to have 3 years polio-free to declare our planet polio-free. So they've now decided that by the end of 2015, there will be no more cases. And it's going to cost, between now and then, it's going to cost $5.5 billion to get to that point, because we still have to do these huge mass immunizations in all these countries to make sure that we don't get any cases. Bill Gates was in Abu Dhabi with Rotary and everybody else. He pledged $1.5 billion of the 5.5 we have left to raise. So as I stand here today speaking to you, we only have to raise another $1.5 billion, only another $1.5 billion. I talk like a U.S. politician. I belong to the Polio Advocacy Committee, and every year we have a thank you party back in the U.S. Capitol, the Mike Mansfield room, and we thank the senators and congressmen who are on the Appropriations Committee that appropriate the money, which is $2 billion they've given us since we started this. Congress does a few things right. And this year they're giving us $131 million. Next year we're scheduled to get $146 million. And the reason I went back a year ago this spring is they wanted the staff of the congressional people, the staffs, as you know, whoever worked in politics, Sue Ryden can tell us a lot about that. The staffs are the ones that do the work. And a lot of the staff members are so young, they never knew anybody that had polio. They didn't know what an iron lung was. So I did a brief PowerPoint presentation showing my wife and later on in the Monahan in the wheelchair and how it affected the children and so forth, so that these young people working in Congress would understand the importance of why we need to finish this job. And we're going to get the job done. I'd like to thank all of you for been working on polio ever since you joined Rotary. We're still not done. Peg Johnson is still trying to raise the final amount of money to meet our district governor's goal this year, and we're almost there. But it's going to be an interesting celebration when polio is finally wiped off of the face of the earth. By the way, we will save $40 to $50 billion and up to date by not having to treat the polio cases, the 650,000 that we would have today if we hadn't started this program. And we'll save $1 to $2 billion each year in the future when polio is gone. So thanks again for all that you all have done. And I'd like to introduce our district Polio Plus Chairman, Peg Johnson. Thank you.
I'm going to be very brief so that you can get on and go over and see the statue. But I was asked to bring you up to date as to what is happening today with the Polio Plus program, as well as how many cases are in the country. And Grant mentioned 41. Unfortunately, I checked this morning before I came over here. It's now up to 45 cases. But that's versus 67 cases at this time last year and 223 for the full 2012. 10 of those cases are in Pakistan, 2 are in Afghanistan. They probably came from Pakistan. 24 in Nigeria. And now there are 2 in Kenya. Again, it's likely that came from Nigeria. It was found in the Kenyan refugee camps. And 7 in Somalia. Somalia, unfortunately, may be a big problem area because of the not Taliban there, it's the Al-Shabaab and violent areas there that have not allowed health workers in the past. They haven't been able to look and see, is there any polio and can we get in there to immunize kids? They're not as involved now. They're bringing their teams in. They said in the Horn of Africa, they're going to be immunizing about 500 million kids this coming year. So we're getting it done. We're getting there, but 45 cases year to date. And as Grant mentioned, it's $1 billion a year is what they feel it costs for that last 0.1%. And I got involved in this a few years ago because I asked, why in the world does it cost $1 billion? We got 45 cases this year. What in the world could cost that much? 60 cents a child? Well, it's because we're immunizing, as Grant mentioned, millions of children around the world. We must do that until a country has been declared non-endemic. We must immunize them for another 3 years. It's also for the diagnostics. The labs will check, find out where did that polio strain come from. If they find areas, they'll jump in there, go in and immunize all the children in a village, or sometimes the adults. It's for the manufacturer of the vaccine. It's for the health workers that are out there. And by the way, most of those health workers are local people. So the young women that you've heard that have been killed and what have you, the security people, those are local people. It's not like they're coming in from the outside. But yes, they do blame the United States. They blame the West. They feel in Nigeria that we are trying to sterilize their children and bring them AIDS. So the imams, the mosques, they're working with us. They're trying to get the message across, get your kids immunized. They really are working with us. So that's the cost of it all. There will be a huge savings, as Grant said. We do plan to have it finished in the year 2018, and that year was set aside just to check, research the rest of the world and make sure that there is no polio out there, because they expect that by the end of 2017, we will be able to finish the inoculations. By the way, you may hear some information about the Salk versus the Sabin. The Salk is the non-oral one. That's the one that we get here in the United States. The Sabin is the oral vaccine that is carried around in these boxes. It does create problems sometimes. Kids can get it from the vaccine, and so they're trying to get rid of that now and go to the other, but that'll take time to do it because it's much easier to carry these around. So I would just ask you the big ask. We need your money. We need you to talk to your friends, to explain to them polio isn't still in the world. We do have the ability to eradicate it. Go out, see the statue, have your picture taken. The $10, 100% of it will go to this Polio Plus program. Thank you all.
We have one short video that we're going to play, and then we're going to adjourn. So bear with us 1 minute.
We are this
We are
close.
this close.
Two direct models.
We're this close.
This close to making history.
This close.
We are this close.
We are this close.
This close.
This close to changing the world. We are this close to making sure no child suffers a crippling disease
Ever again.
We are this close to making history.
We are this close to ending polio.
This close to ending polio.
We're this close.
This close.
This close to ending polio.
This close.
We are this close to ending polio.
All we need is you.
All we need is you.
All we need is you.
Is you.
We are this close. This close.
If we don't act now, we may lose this chance forever. Help Rotary make history at endpolionow.org.
We're going to adjourn here in just a moment and go out. The sculpt that we'll see on the other side that we're giving to the regents, and we'll make that official. We've cleaned it up. You know, we got the new wax. We refreshed the warranty on that thing. It's got very low mileage, so it's going to last a long time. But I thought you might like to hear a couple of things that the artist is telling us specifically today. And this message came from Glenna Goodacre, I think just yesterday, and she sent it for us. Did I surprise you? Sorry. There we go.
Congratulations on the rededication of the Polio Plus Statue commemorating its new location at the Anschultz Medical Center by Colorado University's Medical School new building. I was pleased to donate my time and talent to create a piece to raise the money for Polio Plus efforts to eradicate polio in the world. Sorry I can't be with you, but I send my best wishes and say to you all, keep up the good work.
A lot of good people put a lot of time and a lot of heart into this program. Let's go over and transfer the title to that dude. But perhaps the top of the heap for all of us. Lily Marks is here. She is the executive, the executive vice chancellor and the VP of Health Affairs, Lily Marks, University of Colorado. It was through the good works of her office that we got most of this done. And it only took 2 years to move it, so it couldn't have been that bad. And one of my partners was able to physically move it in about 2 hours. So that seems to be about the right ratio. We have already signed an agreement, and we have given the club and foundation have given this piece of work to the regents of the University of Colorado. It is now theirs, and I know that they will treat it with the same respect, the same care, and deal with this the same loving way that Rotarians have done that in Denver for so many years. I remember it being on the 16th Street Mall, and people would walk by and they'd bring their kids and they'd come back and they'd explain polio. The same thing happened here about 3 weeks ago. I was out here measuring it because we put another plaque on it, and we put a plaque that relates to the Vetra Foundation's role in this whole process, which is key. And I was measuring it, and 2 young ladies walked by, and they were talking, and they were looking, and I said, do you know what it is? And they said, well, we're with the foundation. Our tours come by here, and we stop every time, and we tell them about this. But they didn't. So I spent 20 minutes telling them what polio meant and what it was all about, what it meant to us that went through it, and what it's going to mean to have that thing removed from the face of the earth very shortly. And now they have write-ups, they have our press release, and we know they're going to do a handout every time they walk by here with guests that they have on a tour. So it seemed very fitting. Grant, do you have any final comments you'd like to make?
Everybody that we're only one plane ride away from the wild virus in Afghanistan and Pakistan with our troops over there. And that's why we're overly limited. So it can't be spread. And this piece of art, instead of being a piece of art as it was downtown on the mall for years, now becomes an educational tool because the young people you see out here today that attend the medical school, dental school, the pharmacy school, and nursing school, most of them have never known anybody that had polio and don't know anything about it. So this will be a learning tool for them, the importance of childhood immunization.
And I've noticed that Grant is saying that we're only one plane ride away from another problem, especially when our troops are in Afghanistan and that part of the world. So we have to be ever vigilant. And this is a good teaching tool. It's a lot more than that. I've come over here. It's a great place to sit and do your homework. And I've seen a lot of students sitting here doing their homework with their iPads, of course. But this is just a really nice event that benchmarks that we're going to run from here and get this done, and we'll do it together. And I cannot thank the people that came before Grant. I cannot thank our district governors, our presidents, and all the people within Rotary and all the people that stepped up, like the Gates Foundation, and have put so much money, so much time, so much heart, and so much focus on this. We will get it done because it's just this far. Please have your picture taken. The money goes to the Polio Plus campaign, and plus it's a great keepsake. Finally, thank you all for being out here. This is a culmination of 2 years, 2.5 years of work, and a lot of people from the Veteran Foundation, University of Colorado, but really was very worthwhile. So thank you all.